Hi, now we're going to show you a demonstration of a contextual inquiry. The app that we are trying to build is an ATM Finder app, and we'll be talking to users to understand their ATM usage patterns. Hi, do we have your consent for recording the audio and video for this interview?
Yeah, you have my consent.
Okay, and just for your reference, if at any point of time you don't feel comfortable during the interview, you can leave.
Okay.
Okay, so we are conducting a study to understand your ATM usage patterns. So just start off with, I'm going to ask you with some few demographic questions. So what's your age?
I'm 23 years old.
And where do you work?
I work as an engineer in an IT firm.
Okay, so do you use a smartphone?
Yeah, I use a smartphone.
Okay, what mode of payment do you prefer? Do you prefer a cashless mode of payment, or do you prefer paying through cash?
So that depends on what I'm buying. If I'm buying a commodity that usually costs more, then I would prefer a cashless transaction because I wouldn't want to carry that much cash. But if I'm buying something which costs very less, something like 200, 300 rupees, I would prefer I would prefer paying by cash.
Okay, so do you use ATM to withdraw cash?
Yes, I use ATMs pretty frequently to withdraw cash.
Okay, so if you're in an unknown location and you need to withdraw cash, what would you do in such a situation?
So I think whenever I have been in such a situation where I'm at an unknown place, I do not know where the nearest ATMs are around me, I would ask some locals around there, some shopkeepers or some rickshawalas or someone who knows the locality, and try and get their advice on where to go for the nearest ATM.
Right.
Or else, if I have internet, I would look for the nearest ATM on Google Maps.
Okay. So has it ever happened that you went to an ATM and there was no cash in the ATM?
Yes, a lot of times. I mean, when I'm trying to withdraw money during rush hours, like during the evening, on a weekend in a crowded market, it happens a lot of times that some of the ATMs are out of cash around my locality.
Okay, and has it ever happened that you went to an ATM and there was a long queue in the ATM?
Yeah, especially during demonetization, and even usually, I mean, when there are some of the ATMs that are not in order, they have some technical issues. So, like the whole crowd is trying to withdraw money from one ATM. So, I have spent a lot of time standing in the queue, and that's slightly irritating. It wastes a lot of time as well. Yeah.
Right. So, have you ever tried to look for the ATM on an app like a ATM Finder app or something like that?
No, I haven't tried to look for apps like that.
Okay, so if you're given an app which tells you about the status of an ATM, whether the ATM has cash in it or not, or whether it has a long queue, so would you trust the status of the ATM on the application?
Well, that depends on my experience on using the application. Obviously, the first time when I'm using the application, I have no choice but to trust it. But if the first 2, 3 times I use it, I get good information, correct information. It's very reliable. My purpose is solved. I'm able to withdraw money from the ATM without too much hassle, and it's just that the information furnished to me is good. It's safe as well. So I would definitely use the app again.
Okay, and what other things on the app will increase your trust on the status of the ATM?
So let's say if I know the queue size, so that when I'm leaving my home, I have a rough idea about how much time I'm going to spend while withdrawing money, and let's say I know about the status of the ATM in the sense when was the ATM last refilled with money. If it was recently refilled with money with cash, I would prefer such an ATM. And if someone has recently withdrawn money, that also tells me that this ATM is reliable to visit at that point of time.
Okay, and would you be like to notified by the app about the status of the ATM, whether like this particular ATM has cash now? Would you like to have notifications like these?
Well, that depends. I mean, I would like flexibility over the fact that do I want notifications right now or not, and if I like what specific ATMs do I wish to keep a track on. Like there are certain ATMs around my work, around my home that I want to track, and not every other ATM. And I also want the flexibility to decide when to want notifications, when to switch on my notifications, and when to not receive them.
Right. Okay. So that was the interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.